Okay, let's get into this. So, what do you need to know? We are going to be going through, essentially, the very exciting news of how the judges are getting with President Trump's legal team. They are getting spicy. In particular, there's one particular, although they all are, but one particular judge, Judge John J. McConnell Jr. Sounds like somebody out of the Terminator movie franchise. Let's get into it real quick. So basically, this judge, district level judge, on October 31st, 2025, did an oral ruling from the bench. Quote, the court is orally at this time ordering that the USDA, this was October 31st, that the USDA must distribute the contingency money timely for the food stamps or as soon as possible for the November 1st payments to be made, end quote. He granted a temporary restraining order. He called the administration's refusal to tap that contingency money arbitrary and capricious. It's a legal slap, and said ending payments would cause ultimately irreparable harm. Because, like food stamps have never really been like this. They've never been in this spot before. And this spot is not a great spot. It is not a great spot. No, sir. No, not a good spot. You might say that this spot to do a Trump is a hugely bad spot. Now, November 1st, same judge, written order. We went from an oral to a written oral. November 1st, 2025. The order clarifying basically what needs to be done when, because remember, judge's team was like, yeah, we're gonna have to get some clarification on this. We're not totally sure what the judge wants us to do, but we're gonna have to get some details and clarifications and bullet points. All right, so anyways, the judge said, all right, here's what you're gonna do. You have a choice. Full benefits by the end of Monday, November 3rd, or partial by the end of Wednesday, November 5th. Quote, there is no question that the congressionally approved contingency funds must be used now because of the shutdown. So in other words, he was saying to Trump's team, where did you cook this up that you can't pay out these contingency funds for this type of emergency? And just to define the emergency, to clarify for everybody what the emergency actually is, it is Chuck Schumer and Donald Trump having the ultimate stare down, the chicken SUV versus SUV drive as fast as you can at each other showdown. Unfortunately, of course, many Americans are not doing well as a result of it, but that's how it works, okay? Wars are created and run by old men, some women, and they are fought by pretty much everybody else. That's just how it rolls. It is what it is. Okay, Princess Diana, thank you for the $2 donation. I super appreciate that. Putting some love there. Walter, good morning. Hugs to your doggies, please. Will do. We got Shadow Nose. We got Sweetie to the left. Shadow's right over there. They're doing well. Sweetie's been barking at me all day for extra treats. She's on her like 5th or 6th treat. So if she looks like a big chubby dog, she is a big chubby dog. That's why. All right, let's keep rolling. Next, there was a footnote. November 1st order. Quote, the court greatly appreciates the president's quick and definitive response to this court's order and his desire to provide the necessary SNAP funding. So to be clear, right, Trump was leaning on, I don't want to pay this because then I'm not going to have all these poor people screaming at Schumer to go ahead and put pressure on Schumer to get Schumer to go ahead and bend a knee to Trump, right? That was the goal. That was the spirit fingers like plan, right? The kicker is I don't think President Trump totally gets how poor people work. Poor people that are impoverished and many who are homeless, they are not achievement unlocking machines. The middle class is. You give them stuff to do, they're going to do those things throughout the day so that they get paid, right? Because they got to work to pay the mortgage, work to pay the rent, work to pay the student loans. But the impoverished, right, is a different game, right? They're not accomplishment machines. If they were, they wouldn't be in the same situation unless they like super love freedom and hated everything corporate, which there are some of those. So as a result of this, what happens is I don't think Trump totally got it right when he thought that he was going to turn a bunch of homeless and impoverished individuals receiving food stamps into a marching military force of greatness against Schumer. I'm not sure how his team got that one wrong. I'm not totally sure how his team didn't advise him a little bit better on that one. Now, as you know, that was the cutesy note, the giving Trump the pat on the back from the judge. And the judge was saying, you better go do what I say, Mr. Trump. You better go do what hey. November 6th rolls around. You may remember it as yesterday. Just minutes ago. Literally 13, 14 minutes ago. Latest ruling from the bench as a result of non-compliance with the judge's orders. The judge sharply rebuked the administration for partial payments and delays, and to be honest with you, snippy comments on behalf of Trump. You remember, Trump basically came on Truth Social and said, you know what? I'm not going to pay food stamps. And then the White House team was like, yeah, but we are. We're just going to slow roll this thing, right? Okay. Quote, people have gone without for too long. Not making payments to them for even another day is simply unacceptable. Without SNAP funding for the month of November, 16 million children are immediately at risk of going hungry. Okay. Because, WIC benefits ain't going to cover that. They're just not going to cover that. Quote, last weekend, SNAP benefits lapsed for the first time in our nation's history. There's a problem that could have and should have been avoided. The judge has now ordered, for literally today, ordered full benefits delivered to states by Friday, November 7th, saying the administration, quote, did nothing to ensure timely delivery and blatantly overstepped authority. Now, some of you will say, how can a district judge really order the president to do that? And they can. But Trump, now being stepped on, has the rights of certain options. He can try and appeal it in different ways. He can try different legal tactics to slow it down again. But at the end of the day, Trump's in a tricky, sticky spot. It's a little bit spicy because people, it's a great surprise, are not calling up Schumer and saying, Schumer, you're the reason that we're all starving. They're instead saying, Trump, you're the reason we're all starving. I mean, obviously, none of them are really starving, but, it's the bottom line of it. Now, as you will remember, I said between the 5th and the 10th of November, food stamps would likely pay out. We are going to find out tomorrow whether or not the judge is happy with Trump's team. Now, remember, Trump's team has been saying, hey, we're going to pay out the benefits. We're going to pay out half. And then they put out an updated response where they can pay out up to 65% of the benefits to those who are supposed to receive them. Right? And then I just did a video where I went through every single state and walked you through every single state as to how many people are no longer going to be receiving food stamps going forward. Because remember, you have the big, beautiful bill that came out, which ends food stamps for a lot of people, millions. And then you also have the new USDA calculations that are also going to pay some people $0 for the food stamps because of how they're calculating it to make sure they have enough money for the people that they're trying to get the most food stamps to, which are the full food stampers, full amount. So here's basically the deal. The judge he's not happy. He's I would say he's a little cranky, a little angry, a little sassy, a little cranky. This order was issued by Judge John J. McConnell Jr. of the U.S. District Court of the District of Rhode Island. It is his second rebuke of the administration for actions that threaten to leave millions of Americans, obviously, in a situation where they are not doing so great. I want to point out something that I think is important to understand about this video. Okay? What you are seeing is the reality of the rich class. And some of you are going to go, yeah, it's all about Trump. No. Some of you watch those other channels and they just spin your brain constantly with Democrats are pure angels and Republicans are the ones in the 7 layers of hell. No. This entire thing is happening because of 2 parties. All the people that vote with Schumer, all the people that vote with Trump, there's a game. It's a chess game. They're all playing it. Remember, they could just go ahead and begin the voting process. Now, they did go ahead and shut down the House, right? That was a tactic, right? Says no angels, right? No angels here. But at the same time, the Democrats are asking for a lot of extra stuff on top. Now, to be fair, we could very easily cut out. Sure, subsidies for people who can't afford their health insurance without government assistance, help them. Absolutely. But massive funding to all these other types of programs, I don't know. We're like 38 trillion in debt. We're not doing so great. And some of you will say, well, fine, cut military funding. That gets spicy. You cut military funding, you got a problem, because the only reason any of you have the level of confidence and ego in living your daily lives without worrying about some sort of missile coming down is because we do not cut military funding. I can assure you that the moment some spots on American soil start getting that horrible, horrible burnt smell to them, you are all going to feel very differently about military funding. My point to you is really this. At the end of the day, I feel like the Republicans were in the driver's seat until they made a fatal flaw with this food stamp situation. Yeah, it's not really going to hurt them that much, because let's just be fair. And I know some of you are going, oh, I'm not like that. Okay, fine, whatever. But let's just be fair. Most of those who are homeless or low income, they don't vote Republican. They don't. Those individuals are accustomed to receiving benefits from the government for the most part. They are tied to the state. They are recipients of state welfare. They need it. They got to have it to be able to survive. And then you go to middle class, middle upper class, upper class, rich, wealthy, billionaire. Those people don't want government in their life because they're managing their existence and managing what they want to do. They want less government. Now, some of the middle class will say, no, I want more government because it means more health insurance. The dumbest thing I have ever seen Americans do, the dumbest thing I've ever seen them do, is vote in the government to basically be the new architectural designer of healthcare, instead of having the government stay out of it, but be more aggressive with punishing and restricting the healthcare providers from raising their costs. Now, you may be sitting back and saying, no, how could they do that? Every time they raised their costs, they were getting approvals from Congress in different ways. Well, how did that happen? Well, you see, when you run for an office, it ain't cheap. Those TV advertisements, they ain't cheap. Those billboard advertisements, they ain't cheap. Somebody's got to pay for them. Medical industry, tech industry, well, they bring the money. They bring the money to make it happen. So my point to you is, at the end of the day, you don't ever want the government in control of stuff that you have to rely on. Never. I've always said that about Social Security. I like it. It's nice, but it keeps failing. Its trust funds keep running out. 1983, 2033. It's actually going to be before that probably, but they keep running out. Not because our poor little government is innocent. No, it's because our government doesn't invest in the people and make a system that benefits the people. You are literally forced from birth to pay taxes into a Ponzi scheme. And it's technically worse than that, because you don't even have a choice. You are automatically entered into the Ponzi scheme. And you must then, for the rest of your life, pay these taxes so long as you're making earnings. And as a result, you don't really get much at the end of the day. You don't. So my whole big thing to you is, why would you put the government in charge of it instead of making the government a very aggressive regulator that's constantly watching over it? What, you think I'm wrong? Marketplace ain't getting cheaper. It's not. It's just not. So my point to you with all this, just so you kind of understand it, is that at the end of the day, we are going to have some very big news as to whether or not Trump is actually going to pay out full food stamps. And Trump may come back and say, how do you want us to pay out full food stamps? Where do you want us to find the money? Now, look, obviously the government has billions over here, 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 because they tax the shit out of the working class, right? And they try to tax the wealthy, but the wealthy get out of it. They got a lot of deductibles. So my point to you is basically this. Tomorrow is going to be a rip-roaring day for what happens with food stamps. And it's been an interesting study for me because I don't usually do food stamps. Like, I don't do Medicare. You want Medicare benefits set up? You want to go ahead and check and make sure you've got a good deal? Right here. Give them a call. 339-226-6287. Let them do a tune-up on your Medicare. Point I'm getting at, just so you kind of fully understand the situation. Point I'm getting at. It is my belief that Trump will define what happens with the government staying open or closed tomorrow. Whether or not the government opens or closes, that's not going to happen tomorrow. That's not going to happen tomorrow. I supremely doubt it. But if Trump is required to bend a knee to this judge and pay out full benefits, he will take this as a huge loss. This will either make Trump down the line over the next couple of days or the next couple of weeks. This will either make Trump hyper aggressive towards Chuck Schumer and not give them an inch, or it will soften him. So my question to you, everybody in the chat, I want to know right now, my question to you is, do you feel that Trump will become softened by having to bend a knee to this judge to pay out full food stamps? Or do you feel that he will try and spread the time out, use trial tactics, slow it down, ask for an explanation, etc.? What do you guys think will happen? I'm going to look at the chat section right now and see exactly what you guys are thinking, because I'm curious. I'm curious to know what your thoughts are. Please remember also to hit the like button, okay? Every like helps this video do well. There are literally bots that come on my channel that downvote because they're paid for by other entities that don't want me to do these videos, okay? So let's just remember, go ahead, do that like, do that subscribe, do that hype. All right, I'm seeing people say no. I'm seeing people say hardened. I'm seeing people say no, he won't, that he'll do trial tactics. He won't bend trial tactics. I tend to agree. I think Trump is going to come out with his legal team tomorrow, request for clarification specifically on how he's going to go ahead and pay for those billions. I think he's going to have some math issues that the judge is going to have to answer. I think he's going to go ahead and put it off, because remember, if he puts it off tomorrow, he's got Saturday, Sunday, Monday, right? Monday, we come back to this. The judge issues another order. The judge is super pissed off. The judge starts going ahead and throwing sanctions, right? That's the gig. If Trump makes people wait another 3 days for their food stamps, will that make those food stamp recipients likely to call Schumer and beg Schumer to bend a knee? No, because these food stampers will go to pantries, they will get food, they will get emergency resources, they will survive, and they will hate Trump at a level never before seen. It is, in my opinion, that Trump could have gone a couple of ways with this. He could have, A, found a way to pay for the food stamps and made it all about him, like Julius Caesar, and gotten the love of the public. He could, B, right, work on a plan to make sure that citizens only have access to a new right, a new article that basically says, hey, we are working on plans to make sure that having food is a legal right in the United States, and that they will work to make sure that you have food so that you do not starve. May not be the best food, may not be the most quality stuff, may not be a lot of it, but you will have food. Okay? Because I can see Trump being like, he doesn't want to go ahead and give food to people who are 370 pounds, 450 pounds, whatever. I can see him going down that road. Option 3. He could go ahead and use every trial tactic to make this thing last as long as possible. What I personally believe he's going to do, he's going to pay out 65%, because that was in the new notification from the USDA as part of their legal documents. They'll pay out 65%, and then some people will get less than that, and a lot of people won't get any. He will then say that there's no money, and that these other funds can't be used, and that these other funds shouldn't be used, no matter what pot it comes from. That means that a lot of people who either didn't receive food stamps received a reduced amount or received basically the maximum, which would be 65% of what they'd normally get. What does this mean? If Trump can make it through all of November, what happens? Well, I'll tell you this. The middle class are either going to go one of two ways on this thing. They're either going to go one way, which is rah, rah, Trump. Yay, we don't need all this government funding of all these different things. Rah, rah, Trump. They're either going to go that way or they're going to go the other way, which is he's going to lose a bunch of middle class, working family people, voters, because now those people have to pay for the family the family members that were receiving food stamps that are no longer receiving food stamps. Now you may say, wait a minute, isn't it the Republican ideology to go ahead and get people off of food stamps so that they have to work? Look, I work with the homeless and the low income every single day. One thing you need to realize is that some people, even though they're capable, even though they're able-bodied, will never work a day in their life. They, once again, will never work a day in their life. Now, look, you could fix a lot of that by having people have jobs very young in life. I had jobs on a farm, and I've been a barista at Starbucks. I've been a lot of things. I've been a lot of jobs. You could fix that, where a large part of the population could get it going. Some of you argue, no, kids have to study until they get to 18 and then they can get a job. That's not how I did it. That's not how I did it. If you want to go ahead and have your kid wait until they're 18 to get a job, that's fine. You can do that. That's not how I did it. That's not how my kids are going to do it. When my kids are 10, 11, 12, they're going to be working on the farm. They're going to have internships. They're going to work their way into a job. They're going to work their butts so hard that that employer needs them to stay to do that crap work that they don't want to do. That's how I'm going to do it. But you do it however you feel. Now, can we just be fair? There are generations of people who have never worked, raised by generations of people that have never worked. How do you convince them to take all that free time when they're used to asking for benefits, used to asking for food, used to asking for Section 8? How do you convince that population to A, get a job, and B, have fewer children? You can't. You can't unless you statutorily restrict it where they can't have more kids and they got to get a job. You can't restrict them. And that's the thing that Trump doesn't get. He doesn't get it. These people will never work. Some of them he'll get a percentage that will go work, sure. But there are a lot of people who will never work. One of the things a lot of people don't get is that when you work with the homeless, you realize very quickly some people are not meant to, get past 5th grade. Some people are not meant to get past 9th grade. Some people are not meant to get past 12th grade, not meant to get past college, not meant to get past their undergraduate, their 4-year degree, 2-year, 4-year degree, then their master's, then their doctorate, then their, or it could be their professional doctorate and then postdoctorate. And then some people are not meant to achieve those different things. And that's fine. Not everybody has to be an academia superstar. There's a lot of very bright people who have never even went to college. I'll never forget this. One of my claimants, I can't say her name. She has passed away, but I can't say her name. She had this extremely high IQ. She could do math that was impossible. Math that was impossible for my brain, math that was impossible for most people's brains. An extremely high IQ, had a real bad drinking problem, and I will never forget this ever. She missed hearing after hearing after hearing after hearing. I'm going with her for a hearing. Judge Mahan, can't say that. Never mind. A judge basically greets her, right? And then at that point, well, you can't look up who those claims are all sealed, so it doesn't matter. The judge greets her, right? And then basically, and this judge is so incredibly nice, so professional, knows her job inside and out, right? We walk in, she thanks the claimant for coming. And then that's it. We didn't even have a hearing because the judge knew from the medical record what was going on, how everything was going, etc. And I had worked with the claimant to prep the documents to show that she was trying to beat her alcoholism problem. She got her back pay. 3 weeks after getting her back pay, walks in front of a car because she was just too drunk. And, the sad part about that is that the judge, basically put faith in the idea that this lady would make an attempt. Oh, and let me tell you something too. On the day of her hearing, this is important. On the day of her hearing, she had forgotten, right, what day the hearing was. So I found her on the highway. It's not like a big highway. It's like it's a middle of the, there's like restaurants and stuff and places where people live on left and right. I found her on her tricycle on the highway. I found her. I grabbed her. I put her in the car, the Prius. We gave the tricycle to one of her friends who also passed away, ironically, a year later for the same thing, but is what it is. And then I took her right at the hearing, did the hearing, which wasn't a full hearing, brought her back, tricycle. She's happy. Yeehaw. I need you to understand that this lady was smarter, had a higher IQ, intellectual quotient, above the normative standard, beyond anybody in the chat, beyond me, very brilliant. But she did not want to work. And she will never work. And she never did work a day in her life. And she had like a little job here and there, but it was like, a week, 2 weeks. And then it just, she basically left. She'd rather live in the woods than have to work. So just to kind of like solidify for you the understanding of what you need to know about this situation, you have to understand that when you work with the homeless, the low income, the people who aren't working a job, making money, making investments, doing that stuff, a lot of them have a different view of life. And to be frank with you, a lot of them live with more freedom than I do. A lot of them live with a hell of a lot more freedom than I do. One of the things that many of you don't realize is that the people who live in the woods live with a lot of freedom. They got a lot of free time. They got a lot of free places they can go. They got a lot of walking distance that they can have. So I don't think Trump, to be fair, understood how this population works. I don't know if it's easy to say that, well, they don't understand because they're a party of like the working class and the rich, and they're all about making money and making economy and capitalism, and they wouldn't understand the poor. I frankly, out of the two parties, think that the most harmful party for the poor, most of the time, Trump effed up this one, but most of the time, the party that hurts the poor the most was the Democrats, by far. Biden, the raising of constant cost of food, the constant disruption of the economy with, COVID shutdowns, the constant expenditure of funds that didn't need to be expended, the constant of giving money to other countries and taking shit negotiation deals of international trade, basically betraying our reserve currency use. That hurts the poor way more than Trump throwing a hissy fit over food stamps for a month. It does. And I'll tell you why, okay? When you go to the grocery store, some of you will say, how could you say that? How could you say, I'm going to... If you go to the grocery store, okay, and you go to buy a can of soup, you go to buy a piece of bread, you go to buy eggs. Eggs went way up. The homeless and the low income eat the same foods that we eat. They do. They do. They absolutely do. Sure, you might buy a nicer brand, right? You might buy the egg brand that was like the, the chickens and the geese and the, the whatevers, were running around in a bigger field. Sure, whatever. You know what I mean? You might buy that one. It might be healthier, happier eggs, But at the end of the day, they're eating the same things, okay? Because humans eat the same stuff. That's what we do. We eat the same stuff. We eat meats. We eat, greens. We eat, unfortunately, cereals. I eat it all the time. Before I did this show, I had to drink an iced tea with lots of caffeine, and I basically had 2 Pop-Tarts. So if you're wondering how long I'm going to live, I would say probably 70s. It's probably around there. So the point that I'm getting at, just to kind of make you understand what I believe, and you're going to believe whatever you believe, and I'm totally cool with that. Don't think I don't. I'm not trying to push you in either way. I just want you to understand that, like, Trump didn't understand the audience. He thought he was going to punish a group that would then punish Schumer. Schumer then pivoted the whole thing and knew his audience. Because, the Democrats, they know the poor. They're not good for the poor. Please, let me assure you, socialism and communism are never good for the poor, because it just creates more poor and everything gets more expensive. And then you run out of billionaires and then millionaires and then thousandaires to actually take money from. It never works. It's never worked in history. I've had people argue with me about this place and this place and this place and this place. Oh, how it's amazing. Yeah, sure. You can get medical treatment for free in Canada if you can get seen. But let me give you an example of what would have been an exact version of that in America had Biden gotten a second term. Had Biden gotten a second term, he would have legalized tens of millions of illegal immigrants who would have then gone on to, in a refugee status, an asylum seeker status, or a trafficked individual status, SSI benefits. Well, SSI benefits, known as Title 16, is administered by the Social Security Administration. Those Social Security benefits, known as SSI, go to immigrants for a 7-year process and then 2-year up process if needed. If that happens, guess what? All those people on SSI are going to also get Medicaid. And if they get Medicaid, that means all the people currently on SSI or impoverished people on Medicaid are going to very rarely see a doctor. Because if you add tens of millions, let's say 30 million, new people onto SSI, what you end up with is a mass socialism-based system on Medicaid. Do I think we should have Medicare for all? Absolutely. Do I think we should have food for every citizen? Absolutely. But there needs to be systems in place to stoke the fire of capitalism. Because if you don't think capitalism is a good idea, then you have never seen a homeless population in a camp that is completely falling apart because nobody is excited about doing anything about cleanup. Trash everywhere, needles everywhere. It's not good. It's a bad system. So I tell you this, not because I want to scare you. I want you to understand it. I want you to be aware of it. And I understand some of you are going to be like, well, I'm not giving him a, like, I'm not giving him a blah. And I get it. Here's the thing. Tomorrow is going to dictate what will happen. I agree with the chat section. Trump is going to play a trial tactic. He's going to delay. He'll come to Monday for a new update from the judge. And then from there, he'll say, look, we paid it out from the funds that were contingency set aside. These other funds aren't really supposed to be used for this other thing, right? And then all of a sudden we're at the same rotation. Should funds be used as a contingency? And then this time, though, he'll have a better argument that they really shouldn't be used because they weren't intended for that by Congress. I don't know. I think realistically, Trump is deep in this now. It would be smart for him to just find the money to pay the food stamps. It would be smart. He's never going to be able to make it a his thing now. He's not going to be able to Julius Caesar this thing and be like, I am Julius Caesar and I grant to thee. He's never going to be able to do that now. He's ruined that. He played the wrong chess pieces at the wrong time. But if he were able to digest his ego, he might be able to fix this. Let me be very clear about something. If a couple of things happen, then Trump will bend a knee to Schumer. Thing number one, air traffic controllers are slowing down traffic and canceling flights during the holiday season. Trump will have to get likely ready to bend a knee. Another option, food stamp recipients are hungry and hostile. Soros pays a lot of Antifa to go ahead and basically riot, and do all these damaging things, go on TV. How dare you? Although you've noticed, as you probably have, the riots have decreased a little bit. Antifa has decreased a little bit because they're probably going to have federal charges against Soros in the not too distant future. So ultimately what this happens, and it's going to become a question of what is a political funding? You know what I mean? Like, he's politically funding these groups to do this stuff. They've done a lot of criminal actions. He's probably going to get some charges. My final thought is this. I don't think Trump is going to back down in any way, fashion, or form because of how aggressively the Democrats treated him while he was out of office. There's never been a president that had, basically the different departments within the United States government weaponized against him. Now, obviously, he's using them against the Democrats at this point. But it's never been like that. It's never been like that. And as a result of that, when they searched his house, went through his stuff, went through his wife's, pleasantries, if you will, I think what realistically happened was a lifetime hatred, a supervillain status, an anger that is seething at the deepest core levels of Trump has occurred. And I don't know if that's going to free him to actually make the right choice with this whole situation. But I will tell you this, the government on the Democrat side, they are holding on very strong to not lose this battle over this additional funding. And that is mostly because, in my opinion, the old guard is looking to see if they're going to spend one more round in office. Pelosi steps down. Schumer is next. What will be the Democratic Party at that point? Mamdani proves it will be younger people. The energy is there. The Democratic Party will then at that point have completely lost its existence for those Democrats that are in the middle or the middle left. The JFK Democrats, the Clinton Democrats, the Obama Democrats in the first term, not the second term of Obama, they're out. It's not their club anymore. Only the middle left, the middle far left, the woke left will take over that party. To be fair, they were able to vote farm a lot of voters. I don't know if Trump can be fast enough to get rid of them all. He's only gotten like 500,000. There's tens of millions of new immigrants in this country from literally welded open gates. He's losing the numbers game. I mean, sure, you'll say, wow, they got 500,000, blah, 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 yada, yada. Wow. It's not enough. It's not enough. There's an entire army of immigrants that are here that are not legally here that Biden couldn't get to legalize. And he did legalize quite a few that normally, there was so much fraud, like, people writing down the same house 10,000 times, 20,000 times. The point is, at the end of the day, Trump has a major problem, and he does not have an immediate solution to how many immigrants are in this country. And you better believe that when it comes to Social Security cards and voting in person, that is going to be his number one thing before we get to the midterms. Now, look, a lot of people were screaming. They were screaming, okay, that basically, the Democrats had a full sweep, a full win. It was a complete wow. You put blue butts in blue seats that already had blue butts. The Democrats are going to have to go ahead and figure out how to counter Trump. And they're not doing a great way of doing it. I will go into another video of how I think they could do it. But at the end of the day, I feel like their energy is not there. Mamdani is a beginning, but he's also a new guy. And he also represents, to be fair, an entire population that my people, the Jewish people, are very worried about. So it's a very tricky subject. It's a very spicy situation. Ron McMullen, thank you for the $49.99 donation. Super, super big heart. That's a massive, massive donation. It says, bought you T live, bought you to live, you live, bought you live. I think body live. I'm not sure. Help me out with that one. What is that one? Yeah, help me out with that one. So with that said, that is absolutely, absolutely incredible. I really appreciate the donation. I'm going to be showing you guys in the future what we're doing with the studio, because we're setting it up to do a lot more interviews with people who are in the industry of Social Security, people that have retired from very unique places in Social Security. We're going to be bringing them in. It's going to be amazing. All right. With that said, we've gone through a lot of things. Absolutely incredible video. Please remember to like and subscribe. We're going to be doing one more video. I'm not going live tonight to answer questions because I'm getting ready to fall asleep after this next video. Tomorrow, I'm shooting for going live and answering questions for more than just 30 minutes. So we'll get even more people in there to have, questions answered. With that said, the next video it's a good video. It's an educational video. It teaches you all of the phrases that government spies use to get access to your house using ruses that allow them to legally enter your house without having a warrant. It's an important video. Attorney Walter Hnot, most viewed, subscribed to, and clicked on Disability Attorney. Remember to like and subscribe and hype. Please head over to Google, type in Disability Resolution Law Firm, throw some stars up there. Also, if you need a bigger session, 30-minute, 1-hour private session, mini contract is below. I will catch you a little bit later. Have a wonderful night, and I will see you in about 10 to 15 minutes. Thank you so much. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.